I'm Bianca.
And I'm Shawnee.
And you're listening to Mindful BS,
a weekly discussion about how we mindfully navigate through life's BS.
The major, the minor, and everything in between.
So you ready?
Let's do it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another week of your favorite podcast, Mindful BS. I'm Shawnee.
And I'm Bianca.
And it is a cold and snowy day up here in Northeast Ohio, baby.
You ain't never lied, baby, okay? And not only is it cold and snowy, but also it is a frigid fright in my home because our heat isn't working. I don't know what's going on. Like, I got this on 80 right now. I got it on manual. I got it. I don't know what's going on, but basically we don't have no heat. So I'm freezing. My daughter's freezing. And I have to call emergency maintenance as soon as we get done with this podcast. But you know how that has gone for me in the past. So
that is so trifling.
what else can you say besides this is trifling?
And I think the part that's so sucky about it is because it's literally been fairly nice in weather recently, but it's like the one day we get snow and the temperatures drop, bam.
That's what I'm saying. And at first I thought it's one of those things too. At first I thought I was tripping because I'm like, dang, is it like me or is it extra cold? And real, like, no, it's super cold. And I've been trying to play with it. I'll hear the furnace because our furnaces are individually in the apartment. I'll hear it turn on. It'll turn on for like 5 minutes. Not sure if real heat is coming on, but it's not. It's not doing it. But you know what? It's fine. It's fine. It's all fine.
Aww. Okay, well, outside of that, inconvenience, how has your week been?
I thought that my week was pretty cool. I spent it just getting ready for Bria's birthday. Bria turned 9 on Friday, and we threw her a sleepover. I survived. It wasn't as bad as I anticipated, but it definitely gave typical sleepover vibes. A little drama here and there. At one point, Bria was telling me she wanted everybody to go home. Shani and my brother came to help me supervise, and even though Shani ain't get there till like 9:30, but she had to work, so it was fine. By the time she got there, I feel like the party was really winding down for real, but we still had a good time. And the next day, I told y'all I was gonna let Bria, before she had the sleepover, she canceled it. Then we were supposed to be having like a yes day where we were supposed to be doing all her favorite things. And somehow we still ended up doing all her favorite things the next day too. So I'm just saying her weekend was packed. I'm birthdayed out. Mama is tapped.
Well, shout out to you. It definitely seems like she enjoyed her birthday weekend. I mean, them kids was up late, honey. Okay. Seemed like it was a good time to me. Yeah, I don't know. I had a blast.
Yeah.
Can't really speak on what the kids was doing, but I was in there cracking up.
Yeah, it was pretty dope. And I think they really did had a good time. I heard the one little girl like, this the best sleepover I ever been to.
Okay. And bam, mission accomplished.
Right.
Mission accomplished. My week. As Bianca mentioned, I've been working. Okay. I feel like you remember that Bryson Tiller song? He'd be like, I've been working on putting in overtime. That's how I felt this week. Okay. Work has been busy, hectic, and I wouldn't normally use the word overwhelming, but I don't want to say overwhelming, but I feel like elements of my workday have felt almost overwhelming. But outside of that, it's been a pretty good week. I did watch Creed 3 again. Don't ask why. But I did go back to the movies to watch Creed 3, and I wanted to just mention two things that I didn't mention in my first review. I absolutely loved the music in this Creed 3. And I'd also like to say that for me personally, this one also had the best fight scenes. Like, just everything about the fight scenes, the way the cameras pan, just the intensity, everything about the fight scenes in Creed 3 are amazing. So once again, if you haven't checked it out, make sure you go and check out Creed 3. The only other thing from my week that was really, really interesting is that at my daughter's school, they had like a Dr. Seuss week where they basically they had theme days. So every day was like a different theme based off of a Dr. Seuss book. So for those that aren't familiar, I want to say there's a Dr. Seuss book called like Oh, the Places You'll Go or something like that. So for that day, they told the kids they can come to school dressed up as what they wanted to be when they grew up. So my daughter comes home, we're in the car. She's like, tomorrow is dress day. I got to figure out what I want to. She's like, tomorrow's dress day. I got to dress like what I want to be. So me, I'm just like, hey, okay. So like, what do you want to be when you grow up? She says, a mom. Y'all, the first thought in my head is girl by like in my head, I'm thinking like a mom. I feel like her whole life flashed before my eyes. So then I'm thinking of like those Lifetime movies where like the preteens be obsessed with being parents. So then they get knocked up really early. Now, the mom's stressed out because she raising her daughter and a granddaughter. I just start thinking of all of these like horrible things. Like in my head, I'm like, there are so many other things that she could be instead of or before coming a mom. So that's what was going on in my head. But instead of saying any of that, I just said, oh wow, that's amazing. And later when we got home, I talked to her about it more. And the reason why I responded the way I did is because although my mind went through all of those thoughts, I think I also instantly realized that in some way, I was trying to invalidate the responsibility, the impact, and how truly important and just it's like being a mom is important work. You know what I mean? Like that's no easy job. And for some reason, I felt like in that moment, I kind of was like, dang, why I just like in my head down being a mom. Obviously I think we oftentimes want our children to aspire to be really, really great things. And in that moment, I just felt really bad because I'm like, I'm in some way I'm subconsciously saying being a mom is not something great to become or to aspire to, when in reality, we need more people who do care and are so passionate about being parents, because that is what ultimately shapes our future as a society and as a world. So, I let it go. And when I asked her like why she wanted to be a mom later, because in my head, y'all ain't gonna lie, I was still like, I don't know about this. Let's get you involved in some more after school activities, open up your horizons. But when I asked her, she was like, I love taking care of my baby dolls and protecting them and feeding them. And I just love them like you love me. So in
Oh,
that moment, it became very evident to me that her wanting to be a mom was because she sees me being a mom and my mom, you know what I mean, being a mom to me, and that for her that's everything, you know what I mean, and she values me and the women around her that she see are mothers. And I don't know, it was kind of full circle moment for me where it's like obviously what she wants to be when she grows up is going to change. But I don't know, it almost made me feel good because I'm like, wow, so at least, maybe I'm doing a good job, because at least she's not like, I don't want to be this, I don't want to do this, this looks horrible. Um, but yeah, so that was my weekly recap. I had a lot of interesting parenting moments this week. I'm not gonna lie, but we'll talk about those another time. So
okay.
as always, we hope you guys had a great week, but if not,
Try again next week.
and with that being said, so you guys, we switched up the episode order last week when we had on a guest, and Bianca and I think we're going to try it one more time. So please let us know, reach out, let us know how you guys feel about us having meeting of the minds before the other topics. But yeah, we're going to get right into the meeting of the minds topic today, which is ironic because I just mentioned motherhood, and we are going to talk about, I don't even know how to call it, the biological clock, baby. Okay.
Yeah, we are. So this week, as I was preparing for Ria's ninth birthday, it obviously had me reflecting on, me as a mom and how many times I could do this over again. So, so if you know me or you've been following the show, I go back and forth between wanting to just have one more or just being the most awesome one parent mom that I can to my child that I currently have. Usually it's no big deal to me because it's just like, I mean, it'll happen when it'll happen, and it'll still happen when it'll happen. But me realizing that now I'm 32 years old, and if I want to have kids before I turn 35, in 3 years is nothing, because we literally just could almost lump 2020 and 2023 all together, because that was the quickest 3 years of my life.
Flew by.
That makes me feel like these next 3 years are very crucial. And really, I'm not the determining factor of if I'm going to have that son or not. My body is, though. So that's why I wanted to, just have a conversation, because I'm sure we have people our age or a little older or just a little younger who may not really be thinking about, like, should I freeze my eggs? And is it going to get to a point where where having kids may be more difficult for me? We are kind of losing the pregnancy, going out of the pregnancy scare moments to the pregnancy, what if I can't get pregnant moment. So I just wanted to talk about that, because I feel like that's something that not only am I experiencing, but I'm sure there's other people or listeners experiencing the same thing.
Yeah. So if you follow me on Instagram, last week I made a story post about how I was considering being a surrogate for someone. And I had no idea that that post was going to bring in so much engagement. And I thought it was interesting because most of the people that responded to my post were men. And I got a lot of questions saying, like, why would you do that? This is really interesting. Um, Someone who's a little bit closer to me, he even asked, like, I'm curious to know why. He then asked me my age, which is fine. I don't care about that. And then when I told him my age, he was like, well, you're still so young. I just don't understand, why now? Or, you have plenty of time. And in that conversation, it became very, very evident to me that I do believe there are some misconceptions on having children, and it is something that we think we will always have time for, which, to Bianca's point, that is true. But there are just factors that I think we all need to be mindful of and aware of, so that as we are doing our family planning, we can keep those statistics and those, scientific facts in mind, because they will impact our ability to have children and expand our family with age. So, before we get started, I wanted to define infertility, because someone had responded to it. Is like, obviously, if someone gets a surrogate, a lot of times it's because someone in, like, maybe a couple they're unable to, have the child. It's usually the woman, which is why you need a surrogate. Because a lot of times, if the man is infertile, then they'll just use someone else's sperm. So somebody was like, how did he say it? He basically was like, so he asked me what a surrogate was. I explained that to him. And then he like, that's crazy, to have a baby for somebody else and then just get a baby away. Like, if they can't have kids, like, maybe they should just accept that they not able to have kids. I know, very, very harsh, statement to say, but I try to have discussions in my DMs and, like, just educate people. But I really wanted to define what infertility is, because it also became very aware to me that a lot of people don't think that that they're infertile, but based off definition, a lot of people actually are. So infertility is defined as not being able to get pregnant or conceive after 1 year or longer of unprotected sex. So a lot of doctors and scientists will define that as being a sign that you may be infertile, because over the span of a year, statistically, they, based on numbers, would assume that you would at least have one or, two chances of possibly conceiving or getting pregnant. So I wanted to define what that is. And I also wanted to state, based on what I was seeing in my DMs, that a lot of people automatically associate infertility with women. and that is not the case. Infertility is actually just as common in men as it is in women. There's literally only a 1% difference in infertility in men and women. And I also wanted to say that 48.5 million couples around the world experience issues with infertility or having children. And out of those couples, 30% of the issues can be solely attached to women. 30% of the issues were solely because of the man. 30% were it was an issue with both partners. And then 10% were unknown. So again, just I wanted to reiterate that because I feel like based on the conversations I was having that men somehow felt like they were exempt from experiencing fertility issues. And I just wanted to reiterate that that is not the case
Yeah.
at all. And I'll share more about like causes of infertility for both men and women, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. I think that that is fair because most of the time when you do hear the conversations, it's definitely targeted towards the women. Like men have never even thought like if it was a scenario where where they weren't having babies, the men are definitely not going to it's me. They're automatically going to, well, let's go to the doctor and see what's going on, emphasizing that it obviously must be you and not me. So I'm glad that you brought that up as far as the men are also infertile too. But also just like Shani was wanting to bring up, there's different reasons why there's where people are infertile. There are also different reasons why people decide to make decisions as far as how to increase their fertility, as far as like freezing eggs. I know you guys have, I know for me, I don't feel like I've heard freezing eggs as much before as I have now. And I feel like that is because there is an increased desire. For one, women are waiting longer to have children. Women are, they are putting their careers, their preferences, their self first before they decide to have women. Typically before, when people were discussing freezing their eggs, it was because there was a medical emergency happening where they knew for a fact that that may cause complications in the future. So they were doing that. But now a lot of women are electively freezing their eggs. They're basically making a decision like, I know I don't want kids right now, but I am aware that it may take a little more for me to get pregnant if I decide to wait in the future. So now they're going and freezing their eggs.
Yeah, which that's a whole different discussion. And we're going to talk about some of the things people are doing for family planning or alternative methods that you can take if you are experiencing issues with infertility. But before we get there, I do want to explain one thing, going back to kind of like the men and women. So, as we mentioned in introducing this, a lot of times for women, it's called the biological time clock, right? They'll say, like, your biological clock is ticking. So, for those who aren't really familiar with that phrase, for women, our peak fertility is actually like late teens to mid to late 20s. After that point, our fertility, I mean, quite frankly, it begins to decrease. Like we start producing less eggs, our fallopian tubes in our uterus and all of those things, they like, all right, we gonna give you what we can, but it will decrease until we reach the point of menopause, which for a lot of women actually hits in the 40 to 45, for some 40 to 50 it typically hits, but it can happen as early as 40 and still be considered normal timing for menopause. So that's what the biological clock is for women. For men, in researching this, I found it interesting. So men will always produce sperm. Like you could be 90 and still producing sperm, which is why I think so many men feel like they are exempt from infertility. However, I want to point out that research does show that as men age, although they are still producing sperm, the quality of the sperm declines rapidly. So after the age of 40, sperm quality, motility, and volume decrease dramatically. So, you're not, when you do what you're supposed to do, you're not shooting out as much sperm. The quality is not as good. sometimes they aren't as strong and healthy to actually make it to the egg. And not only do those things decrease after the age of 40, but once you hit 40, there's a higher chance that your sperm may be damaged or there may be mutations to the sperm's DNA, which actually, yeah, I know, Bianca, your face,
Like what?
which actually they're seeing through studies that men who have children after the age of 40, that there is a higher risk for genetic abnormalities, childhood cancers, autism, and different diseases like that. And even bipolar, they're saying that where the men was 40 and over, even if the woman was, 30 and under, that is a reoccurring result that they're seeing. So just wanted to share those things as well. Now, a few more statistics about infertility before we start going into like the causes and like some of the things Bianca was saying with freezing eggs and just alternative methods. Women aged 40 to 44 are 11 times more likely to be infertile than younger women. And I also want to point out, because we are two Black women, that non-Hispanic and Black women are 44% more likely to be infertile. And there are tons of reasons why infertility happens. We'll get into those in a second, but just throwing that out there again, because I feel like people think it's a one size fits all when there are really a lot of factors. It could be race, it can be environmental factors, it can be age. There are tons of things. And we all know our bodies are just different in general.
Yeah.
So, getting into a few of the causes. So, some of the top causes for male infertility are abnormal sperm production or function. That can be caused by genetics, health problems like diabetes or infections. Also, I thought this was interesting, especially in our day and age, girl, because, the guys in our day and age, they love hitting the club. They love going out. They love, I be seeing the men smoking the hookah every day and stuff. But I thought it was interesting that they said that another leading cause of infertility is overexposure to cigarette smoking, alcohol, marijuana, steroids, and even frequent exposure to heat, like from saunas and hot tubs, which I never would have guessed that.
No,
And another top reason for infertility in men are just problems delivering the sperm in general, which I was not aware that men could also have blockages in their testicles or cystic fibrosis that would prevent them from actually delivering sperm. So I thought that was very, very interesting.
No, I heard that about the hot tub before. I heard that definitely impacts the nut sacks.
Okay. Now, because we're talking about blockages, I want to talk about some of the top causes of infertility in women, which for women, they can also experience blockages of the fallopian tube, which may make it difficult. There are also ovulation disorders like PCOS, which we are seeing becoming very, very, very I don't want to call it normal, but PCOS impacts a lot of women nowadays. And I thought it was interesting that they even said that too much exercise, eating disorders, and tumors could also cause infertility in women. A few other common causes are endometriosis, pelvic scarring, and of course, menopause, which we are all aware of. So, just wanted to throw out some causes of infertility for both men and women, because if you're someone who's listening to this and you're like, dang, I have been trying or having unprotected sex for a year and I've never, had a scare or anything. These are things to be aware of because they may actually require medical attention once you're ready to start doing some family planning.
Yeah. Good job. Those were some good notes for people who may, not know. Now, say you said you have decided that maybe you have some infertility issues. You went to the doctor, some confirmation was made, and you like, well, what are my options now? Well, like I was saying earlier, you do have the option to freeze your eggs. Now, that sounds great and all, but if you've got to freeze your eggs, you got to be really invested, because just for the testing, the initial testing, the ultrasounds, and the initial procedure, that could run you a good $10,000 to $12,000. That's just the beginning part of the refrigerator. That doesn't even include the storage fee. Or once you say you do decide you want to move forward, then there's another fee for the post submission. That could vary, like depending on how many rounds of IVF you have to do or how many times they have to run the treatment. That could run you another $5,000 to $10,000.
Oh my
And just to purchase a vial of sperm alone is going to run you at least $1,000 to $1,300. So it's very, very pricey to plan another child. But if that is something that you are interested in doing, it's definitely something that can be done. I was out here doing the research, and then when I got done, I'm just like, storage fees, test. Some might not see Earthside no time soon, but but for other people who them numbers don't scare you away, I would encourage those to do so.
Yeah. Now, let's say you already missed the egg freezing window. So you're looking at different ways for you to have a child. So some of the common ones are, like I mentioned in my story, surrogacy. Now, the price for this varies depending on what channel you go through. Some people will literally just like reach out to a friend, a coworker, and just literally low key ask for like a favor, like, hey, my partner and I are trying to blah blah blah. Would you be open to being our surrogate? And they don't go through an agency. But for those that go through an agency, the average cost is anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000 for surrogacy. Yes, yep. And it's because the surrogacy takes a lot. So there's embryo creation, which is where they actually take, maybe the mother's egg, the father's sperm, and create the embryo to then implant in whoever the surrogate is. Some couples that need egg donation alone can cost $20,000 to $30,000. Then there are agency fees. They have to pay the agency. A lot of times people want to go through an agency because if you don't, there's a chance that, for example, like let's say Bianca, we friends, right? Let's say me and my partner are having trouble having a baby. So we ask you if you'll be our surrogate. You like, yeah, it's cool, girl. I got you. There's a chance that if we don't have any legal paperwork in place, you could carry our child full term and then decide, actually, this is my child. I carried it. I birthed it. This is my baby. And in some courts, you would actually win that case, even if you use my egg and my partner's sperm because you carried the child. So that is why a lot of people don't go that route and they go with an agency. But agency fees alone are anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000, right? They also pay the surrogate to carry the child, and most of the times they also cover all of the surrogate's medical expenses. They provide food stipends. They pay for the surrogate's maternity clothes, all of that stuff. So having a surrogate, a lot of money, at least $100,000. Bianca, your face.
Because you know how I get when it comes to large numbers. They freak me out for services like this.
So that's that route. Now, some people, instead of going with the surrogate, they might want to go adoption. Adoption prices vary as well. If you're going through a private agency, that's anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000 to adopt. Now, another option to that is adopting through foster care. The costs with that are very, very low, if any. A lot of times it's very easy to adopt after fostering. However, we are all aware of, sometimes the traumatic scarring that children in the foster care system have gone through. So unfortunately, that's why a lot of parents don't go that route, because they know that off the bat, they're going to have to really help that child heal, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, because of the things that they may have experienced throughout foster care. But if you are interested in becoming a parent, adoption through foster care is a great option if you may not have a lot of the upfront large, money to invest in it.
Also wanted to piggyback on, just because Shani had mentioned like some people ask their friends or family members as far as sperm is. If you were to go to, a lot of that also has to deal with like demographics. Black women are having a very hard time finding Black sperm if that's what they're interested in for their kids. Only 2% of Black men are in all of the 4 major sperm banks that you can go to.
What?
2% out of all the races, only 2%. And then they do have like online places where you can, but obviously it like sells out immediately fast when people have that. And that's just, they say that's due to a couple different things, like as far as Black men having a distrust for the medical field, so they're not just going to donate their sperm. Apparently you have to have like a extensive medical background history, 3 generations, and people don't have access to, the Black men don't have access to that information. And then lastly, they're just not recruiting the Black men to come in and give their sperm, so they don't even know that this is something that they can do. If you decide to donate sperm, you can get anywhere between $70 to $150, depending on where you go to. Because, like I said, the whole vial of sperm can run the customer $1,000 to $1,300. So that's what the donor gets out of it, $150 max,
Which
right?
is kind of crazy when you think about it. It's like you giving them $150 max, but you're charging a
A
thousand
thousand for
plus more for the
Mhm.
sperm.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. I thought that was interesting too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we hope we're not going to beat you guys over the head with this information. We really just wanted to come and have a conversation about pregnancy, infertility, and share alternative resources because the information is out there, but it's one of those things like I think Bianca and I had a conversation offline about this, and we were just talking about how when you're younger, you know about the biological time clock. You just always assume that you're going to have time, but as you progress in age, those matters become very real. And it's one of those things like even if you still know you don't want to have children in your early 20s, at least you can use this information to really plan it out in the best way possible. So like, all right, so I don't want to have them now, but after this time, my sperm quality gonna be bad. So maybe I should. Can they freeze sperm?
I'm not sure.
You know what I'm saying? I would think that might be an option. I didn't see it anywhere though when I was looking it up.
Me neither.
Huh, curious. But basically, I get what I'm saying. Maybe you want to pursue the option to freeze your eggs, or you already know you're going to want to go and get a surrogate, or you just say, hey, I don't want to have kids now, but let me do everything I can during this amount of time so that by 28, 30, I'm still fertile. My partner should still be fertile, and we can plan it then. We just wanted to, provide the information.
Yeah, because I know it is something that, like I just said earlier, I'm not thinking about, wait a minute, there may be a decline in my eggs as I'm not thinking about having children. But when the moment happens, I like to be prepared. People like to be prepared. So this is your way to just be prepared.
Yeah, for sure. So, with that being said, we're going to close out this week's meeting of the mind discussion and we can get right on into TV and movies.
Okay, well, last week Shani was on here making confessions about eating Subway. So this week I feel like I would like to make a TV confession.
Ooh, okay.
So y'all, I ain't gonna hold y'all, but love, life, whatever, which one after lockup is really one of my guilty pleasure shows. I like, even though the sleepover was going on, when they got to a good point where I was like basically being able to excuse myself, I'm like, oh yes, I got time to watch Life After Lockup. And I don't know what it is about it, because like, you know what I know? I just am very entertained about the decisions that are made on this show, because I just can't fathom how, I personally wouldn't be in those situations, but I just can't fathom how they just really ended up in these outrageous situations. And I don't know. I just can't stop watching. And that's my confession.
That show is so horrible, you guys. Bianca had me watching that. It's like it's one of the it's so horrible, it is entertaining.
Yay!
Yeah, it's like so bad that it's entertaining. Like I don't even know where to start. There's somebody who just had a baby and she married, but she cheated on her husband.
because all he do is play the game and he a bad husband. But she knew that before she even married him because he already had like 8 kids that he wasn't taking care of.
Then there's somebody, it's just a lot.
And then
Like,
it's somebody like her man just got out of jail a month ago. She already pregnant. She got 3 kids. He got 4 kids, but he told her to quit her job with benefits because he was going to take care of them. But all he do is go to the studio and try to rap. And he can't even travel because he got an ankle monitor. He can't even leave the state. And they live in like Pennsylvania or somewhere. Like, how is your rap career about to take off? How was
and
y'all
they
about
annoying
to
because
do that?
they match
Oh,
from
yeah.
head to toe every day.
They do. They
It's
do.
just too much.
A
And
lot.
then this one lady who wants to me, I'm actually really concerned about her and her relationship because she's giving that she wants to get out of the relationship. But some of the scenes when she like is around him, to me is giving I'm unsafe, I'm unhappy, I really need to get out of this, but I'm trapped. And that's kind of sad. Then it's another couple where this guy been dating this girl all these years because she held him down while he was in prison. But he get out and now his sister's like, my brother just got out. They trying to find him somebody else because they don't like the girl that
Yeah,
he with.
and yep. And
And
they
they're from Cleveland. That's so
from
embarrassing.
Cleveland. And then the guy, like, even when they got out, when he got out, she like, you cheated on me 7 days after you got out. Like,
Oh, he did?
yes, he is out here cheating with the women's. And then he even got the nerve to be on here like some when they was talking about because she said she was pregnant. And then she said she thought she was pregnant. And then he like somebody else just hit me with the same thing, trying to say she was pregnant. They like, you don't be using condoms. He like, I mean,
Oh
I be
no.
forgetting. Like you was in jail, sir. Like you just getting out here raw. Ugh, it's just a lot.
Y'all gotta use condoms.
Mm.
Use condoms. But yeah, I mean, if you guys
Every
are into
Friday
that,
night, and I'll just be
if
tuned in.
if you're looking for something that's really, really horrible but very entertaining, check out Love or Life After Lockup. It'll definitely do it.
They definitely will.
And since we were just talking about sex, I have to share Sex Life on Netflix. For those that aren't aware or familiar with it, it's basically a show that follows this lady. Her name is Billy. She has a kind of a crazy sexual past, and pretty much like her sexual past kind of collides with her new life, which is married with 2 kids. When like her ex-boyfriend, who was like this bad boy music artist, producer, just comes back into her life. And that show is it's
That
so
show
good.
it is good. Now there is a lot of freaky sex scenes in there. But if you could get past the freaky sex scenes, there's also a lot of good like storyline discussion topics that can be had based off, just transitioning from one life to another, connections that you may have, the difference and intensities of connections and how they can interfere or alter your current life when you chasing things that you used to have versus now. There's just like so many different layers and topics that go. Now, Billy, the main character, she get on my nerves because I be looking at her like, Billy, what the hell is going on? Or what the fuck is you doing? But I do think it's a good show.
It's definitely a good show. Do not watch it around anybody else the first couple episodes
Yeah.
because my sister was walking by and she basically thought I was watching softcore porn. And I had to tell her, like, no, this is a Netflix show. But great storyline. We might even have to dedicate some time to specifically talk about sex life because it's that there are that many discussion points in that show.
That's right.
Now, switching it up just a little bit because I have been heavy on podcasts lately. I wanted to share a podcast that I recently discovered, and I think it's very, very fitting, especially since we just talked about infertility and womanhood and things of that nature. The podcast is called Living for We, and it's actually focused on Cleveland and the Black women in Cleveland, their experiences at work, at school, hospitals, etc. Really quick question, Bianca. Did you know that Cleveland, they did a survey and Cleveland was actually ranked the least livable city in America for Black women?
Yeah, I heard that. It's based
Yes.
off the demographics and the access, just like being single and career and just all of that.
Yeah. So this podcast is available now. It's called Living for We. You can literally get it at Apple, just all over. I listened to the first episode and it really, really moved me. I'm mentioning it here because it does almost give more of like if you're watching like if you were watching a documentary, but let's say you weren't looking at the TV, you were just listening to it. That's almost how it listens to me, more like a documentary or a
Mhm.
show or something. So I would highly recommend checking it out. I feel like I had heard of that before, but I think they do a great job of bringing on different people from the city, discussing the inequities in our community, and just, I don't know. After I listened to the first episode, it really had me thinking about my experience living, in Northeast Ohio and particularly Cleveland, the things that I wish I wouldn't have had to go through. And not everything has been bad. There have been like good things that have happened to me here, but I feel like also it kind of fueled Bianca knows I had this desire to leave Cleveland. And it was really powerful because in the intro of the podcast, I'm assuming one of the guests that are going to come on later on, she literally was like, if you are in the city of Cleveland, get out now. But it was like the way she said it and the placement of it, it really kind of hit me. And it was interesting that they said one thing. It's like if we're specifically looking at the data, um, women living here like had one of the lowest life expectancies than
Dang.
in other cities, in other major cities. And I think they even said at one point it was like, if you're looking at the data alone, that would be to say that if I were to move to, let's say, Seattle, that I would live longer. You know what I mean? My entire quality of life would improve simply by being and living somewhere else. And I think when you think about it like that, that's actually really powerful and also very, very sad that simply moving to a different location could completely change my entire trajectory on life. So just wanted to mention that. So again, it's called Living for We.
Okay. Well, the last thing in the TV thing that I wanted to mention was that Love is Blind is coming back on March 24th. If you guys aren't familiar with that show, it's a Netflix show in which they try to say that looks don't matter, that the people date in a pod where they're supposed to be emotionally connected through their dating experiences of not being distracted by seeing each other. And once they make it out the pods, they get married. Now, typically, this show is well, they have melanin on there, but they don't be making it out the pods like that. And there's different reasons for why we might not just see some of the conversations, or maybe there's just no general like connections, but they release like some background information on the people on the show. And I feel like when they do that, that's the people who like are actually going to make it or we're actually going to see. And they got real melanated this time. I said, okay, look at them. So I can't wait to see, how the show plays out because it looks like they have a fair share of our brothers and sisters on the show this time.
Yeah, they do. I feel like they definitely heard all of
The
the
complaints.
feedback.
Yeah.
Because
Mm-hmm.
last season they gave it to them on Twitter. They were going in on Love Is
They
Blind.
was talking about how the black women don't ever show the black women, how they don't be making it out the pods and blah blah blah. And they said, let me show y'all.
Even though I will say this, I brought this up to Bianca. I'll share here. I'm hoping I communicated in a way that don't get me cussed out or canceled. But when we were bringing this up, I did say to Bianca, just to provide a different perspective, I'm like, I wonder if they don't show a lot of the connections or pod conversations that maybe some of the black men and women are having because they're just not highlighting it, or because those conversations really aren't going anywhere.
Right.
They're not progressing. And I say that to say not that black women aren't great communicators, but me being a black woman and speaking from my personal experience, I can say that it take a little bit longer for me to even let somebody in deep enough for me to start talking about, you know, experiences with my parents or daddy daughter issues, or you know what I mean, all of that stuff. And if you notice some of the other conversations with non-black participants, they do go straight into like, yeah, you know, my dad was never around and my parents moved here from Iraq and we were poor. Whereas I feel like a lot of times for black people, we don't like leading with that stuff because we don't like that to be the first thing you know about us. But it kind of does a disadvantage on a show like this when you're supposed to be trying to connect so deeply with somebody so quickly. So I just wanted to share that because I was just curious, but I'm even more excited to see such a diverse cast this season. And I just hope Netflix don't let us down now. Don't do a pump fake where you show all of these beautiful black faces and then we watch the show and we still only get a tidbit here and a tidbit there, and none of them still make it out of the pods.
Agreed.
I'm gonna be upset. But to be fair, if they don't make it out the pods, it's because they didn't
Make it
connect.
happen.
They
Yeah.
didn't connect. You know what I mean? You shouldn't really have anything to do with color. So
And to be fair, all of those connections from last season was a wreck anyway, regardless of what color they was.
okay,
So
a bust.
I just hope this season we see some more authentic, genuine connections out of here, because last season's connections was like, what was that?
You know, give us some more Cameron and Lauren. You
Orange,
know
they
what I'm
still
saying?
going
We ain't had
strong.
one like that since then, I don't think.
I don't think so. Well, that's all I had on the TV section. So I feel like we can move right on into pop culture. And in pop culture, this week, you know, Jonathan Major, he has really been making the headlines just for his stunning performances in both of his box office movies right now. And also he had that did y'all see that magazine cover he did around Valentine's Day? Real
Yes,
good.
girl. Mm-hmm.
But anyway, he not stopping. He's also set to portray Dennis Rodman and a new film coming out called 48 Hours in Las Vegas. I guess the film is about an impromptu trip that Dennis Rodman took to Las Vegas while he was playing for the Chicago Bulls during the 1997 to 1988 season. So we'll see what that's going. But I just really wanted to shout him out because he out here doing it, baby. You doing it.
He really is. And I love that for him. It's so funny though. When they were talking, when Creed came out, somebody described him as being a civil rights fine or something like that.
Oh my God.
No. Okay, but his body in Creed, baby. Oh my God. Now, you know what? You just can we move on? Cause I'm getting hot and bothered thinking about the bodies in Creed, y'all.
Listen,
Bodies.
yeah, I'm in there sitting and I should have a sign on my head that say, you know why I'm here.
And when I say, and they gave you lots of it too, lots of scenes, chest, back, calves, sweat. You know what I'm saying? Dripping.
Ain't nothing.
No. Mm, 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 mm.
Oh yeah. I don't even know how to transition from that because I'm over here having hot flashes.
Okay, well, I'll transition. Somebody that's gonna be having some hot flashes real soon behind bars is Bishop, the Brooklyn Bishop Lamar Whitehead, who we are not new to him. He has been brought up several times before, so for some very questionable, you know, activities. I believe he was also the one that was allegedly robbed. Like he just been brought up before. But a new report has actually come out that says that federal prosecutors are alleging that he had fixed bank records in order to finance his $1 million New Jersey mansion. The feds claim that Whitehead altered bank records to show that some LLC that he has made over $2 million when in reality it made less than $10. They
Mm.
also mentioned that he was faking other bank accounts for basically showing that he had like 3 years worth of, you know, income for this LLC. And yeah, he is looking
Mm.
real bad for him. Now, the reason why I wanted to bring this up is not really, I'm not passing any judgment on him. I have no commentary to put on him. However, I do want to say, actually, no, I do. I have a message for him. What I want to say is, I really, really hate when people in his position where they are meant to lead and draw people closer to God and be an example of how, living a Christian like life is good and it can be prosperous and it can be abundant, to be tied to something so scandalous and devious and scammy
Mm-hmm.
as something like this. And I just hate it because I feel like this is why so many people will say, no, it's just the whole church thing is one big scam. They only doing it for the money. They only doing it for this. And examples like this actually turn people away from developing a spiritual connection, even if it's not going to church. This is the type of stuff that makes people like, it's all fake. You know what I mean? It's all fake. It's
Mm-hmm.
all a scam. I ain't going to nobody church. I'm not congregating. I'm not fellowshipping. I'm not doing any of this because of people like this who abuse their power and abuse, or manipulate the word of God to just make money. And then to go as far as you falsifying documents, like what?
No shame. No shame.
The second thing I wanted to state, this message is honestly for the people who, you know, do have a spiritual connection and they are going to church and they do, are members of congregations. Just a reminder that there will be wolves in sheep's clothing. Just a reminder that there are such things as false prophets. Now, I'm not saying he's a false prophet or, you know what I mean, or anything like that, but I'm just saying be mindful of the people that you follow on your spiritual journey, because not everybody has a pure heart. Not everyone is living correctly. Not everyone is doing it with the right intention. And although your intention is good and right, you just want to be mindful of where people are leading you, is what
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to say. You know, the example that they put out in front of you, I'm sure he probably making it people think, I'm living the word of God and I'm preaching the word of God and this is giving me this lifestyle, when in reality you're scamming and you're scheming and you're really doing horrible things and taking advantage of people, and it's just not right, and that just don't sit right with me at all.
Same. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in the church. I didn't grow up in a Catholic church, but as I have um grown and established my own relationship with God, I'm not really like a go to the church person. I might stream me a good Sarah Jake service, or I might, I worship from my home, but a large part of that does come from me not feeling connected to the idea of church or mega churches, or of something that is more show for show. Like like I get those pastors are they've reached a lot of people, so then people gravitate, so they following is larger. But for me, I don't need all of that. Like, I don't need all the fanfare when it comes to church. I just need, a place where I feel comfortable and worshiping and acknowledging my faith in God. But I feel like for a lot of people, it's the things that go down in churches really discourage them from being like active church members, unless you go to, your little local, I've been going here since I was 6 years old, those
Yeah.
kind of churches. But I do feel like a lot of the mega churches, mega pastors, they be having those shady pasts, and it ain't just the grace of God that got them living up like that.
Yeah, and I just feel like it's so unfortunate, especially, we said on here, they saying these the last days, you know what I'm saying? So it's just so sad that, especially at a time right now when a lot of people are seeking God or seeking some kind of spiritual guidance, for there to be people in a position where they could really impact somebody's life in their journey, to kind of just to tank the water by doing something so corrupt. And like I said, I just feel like that turns people off and turns them away from wanting to dive deeper into a spiritual journey. And it's just, like I said, it's just really unfortunate and it's disgusting, honestly.
I agree.
Mm-mm-mm.
Agree. Well, another thing that's like a turnoff for me right now is, I know people like to travel, but for me, traveling has been seen like a turnoff because, one, the prices of the tickets are high as hell. Two, the planes, I don't know what's going on the planes. We got one plane just falling from high altitude, barely making its emergency landing. We got people on the plane trying to staff the flight attendants and open up the escape doors. We got planes crashing on the runway before they even taking off. And I just need to know what's going on with the airline industry.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, I feel like one site that I saw, I think was called the Thrifty Traveler, they did a good job of breaking down what happened as far as why the prices are so high, kind of reminding us that when the pandemic happened, less people were traveling, there were restrictions. And we saw back then, remember they were trying to get you to buy those flight packages where it was like you could fly anywhere for $45 a year,
Yeah.
something crazy. But now that the restrictions are lifted, sorry. And when they did that, they actually retired a lot of planes, which I didn't know that. We knew that they had kind of laid off a lot of workers. But basically they did major cutbacks to be able to survive then. And now that those restrictions lifted, the airlines were not equipped to basically bring back pilots, bring back employees, take the planes that they had retired, from if they sold them or they just scrapped them. They basically just weren't equipped to
Yeah.
meet the demand. So because of supply and demand, that's why flights are so expensive right now. But I do still feel like it's very, very strange that all of these bizarre things keep happening in air. You know what I'm saying?
That's what
Or
I'm
like
saying.
even going back to that day, remember where like literally all of the flights got canceled, like nobody was flying. I thought that was strange too, because like that never happens. Where literally just like every domestic flight is canceled for
Yes.
a day, or I don't remember how long it was, but very, very peculiar.
Agreed.
But the alternative to that is a lot of people are now, traveling by other means.
Yeah, but like driving and then you find yourself getting kidnapped by the Mexican cartel. If you making those drives to those undisclosed Mexican location areas that are not resort like. So be very careful when you're doing things like that. And then I also heard that large numbers of people are getting sick on like a cruise.
Yeah, it was a cruise that was started from Texas and I think it went down like the coast of Mexico. 300 plus people had some mysterious illness that resulted in vomiting and diarrhea. They are testing their stool and they're trying to get as much information that they can. But right now, we don't have any final word on exactly what it is. At least I haven't seen any final word on exactly what it was that got everybody sick.
Yeah.
But even that's scary because I feel like when, the last one happened, I feel like it was related to some cruises and then also some international flights. People basically traveling and coming back and
Yeah.
being sick and it's spreading. So,
Right.
mm-hmm.
I'm saying while y'all playing y'all summer getaways this year, just be cautious, have fun. I still want y'all to enjoy, go out, travel, do y'all thing. But for me personally, I'm feeling like I'm gonna just stay here real quick and see how it play out.
Yeah, and also I know we even talked about like when you're doing road trips internationally, but even when you're traveling domestically, just state to state, still do your research because unfortunately there are still things like sundown towns and there are still places and people that you may not want to engage or interact with. So just do your research no matter where you're going and when you're going because you want to be an educated traveler.
Mm-hmm.
Honey.
Yeah.
Mm.
The last thing I wanted to bring up, it was about this couple, and I feel like I did this story when it first happened, but they had got they were trying to sell their house, and they house got appraised for like something really low, and then when they had a white person come and pretend like it was like 99,000. And then when they had their white friend, 3 weeks, they hired a new appraiser, had their white friend come act like they was owner. Their home was priced like $1,442,000, like how it was supposed to be.
Wow.
So then they actually went and sued the appraiser, and it's an undisclosed settlement amount. But I just think that's really messed up that even in today's day, we still gotta do stuff like that. Like they literally tried to play them.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to put together a whole systematic plan to prove that they was getting played.
Yeah, it's really sad. And I work in the mortgage industry, and that is something that we are seeing a lot more of. In that there's an agency called the CFPB. They are trying to put things in place to prevent and decrease the amount of appraisal inequalities that we're seeing based on race, gender, age, because that should not be the case. And
exactly.
The studies that they're showing is actually exposing that it has been a major issue, and not just recently, like for a long time. Yeah, for a long time. So
yeah. Well, that's all I had in the pop culture. Did you have anything that you wanted to add?
No, this week was draining. It was just too much going on.
This week drained me.
Okay, Marlo. Seriously though, this week was really, really draining. I felt like a lot of the news that was coming out just wasn't necessarily uplifting stuff, you know. So yeah, I'm good. I'm good this week.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great week.
Yes. So, on that note, if you made it this far, we want to say thank you as always for taking the time to listen and just for being a part of our community, honestly. As always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and rate our podcast. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud. Just we're all over the world, baby. We worldwide.
We got some very committed international listeners. Okay, baby, we see you. Don't think we ain't thinking about y'all when y'all thinking about us. And shout out to y'all. Also, don't forget to tell y'all international homies, y'all domestic homies, y'all local homies, homegirls, whoever y'all got to tell that y'all listening to y'all favorite podcast, which is Mindful BS.
Mm-hmm. And on that note, we will see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.